The Meridian Airways Sky Lounge at Boston Logan International Airport was designed to whisper luxury rather than shout it. Unlike the crowded Delta or United clubs, this was a sanctuary for the discreetly wealthy. Elena Volkov sat in the far corner, her back to the frosted glass partition, her laptop balanced on her knees. At 29, she had perfected the art of invisibility. The knees of her jeans were torn, not fashionably worn but genuinely frayed from years of crawling under airplane fuselages. His once white Converse sneakers were now covered in grease stains and scuffs. To those who saw him, he looked like a graduate student flying thousands of miles, or perhaps an intern heading to a conference. That was exactly what he wanted. What they couldn't see was the weight of the worn leather backpack standing next to his chair. Inside the bag were 3 handmade engineering notebooks, each filled with technical drawings, stress calculations, and special modifications made to the fly-by-wire control system of the Embraer E195 This was the model of the plane he would board in 40 minutes. What they definitely couldn't see was the encrypted email on his laptop screen sent by his lawyer 36 hours earlier. Transaction completed. Meridian Airways, Inc. 51% controlling stake acquired. Total value $2.1 billion. Board of Directors announcement date November 18, Miami headquarters. Strict confidentiality until then. Elena Volkov wasn't just flying with Meridian Airways today. She now owned it, but a lot was about to happen. She took a sip of her black coffee and refocused on the CAD model on her screen. The modification she was reviewing would reduce drag on the E195's winglets by 3.7%, translating to approximately $80,000 in annual fuel savings per aircraft. Multiplying that by Meridian's 42 aircraft fleet, she had calculated a yearly savings of $3.3 million before even stepping into the boardroom. Unbelievable. That word shattered Elena's concentration like nails on a chalkboard. It came from someone 3 seats away. Elena didn't look up. She had heard this tone of voice her entire life. MIT was full of such conversations. The aviation industry was full of such conversations. She had learned very early on that the best response was no response. A tired male voice replied, "Vivian, what's going on? This room is completely ruined, Gregory. Look around. Just look. They're letting everyone in now. The standards are gone. Completely gone," she replied. For Elena, things were about to start happening. Elena's fingers paused on the keyboard. Her instincts, honed as the only black woman in countless engineering labs, tingled with a familiar feeling. "I don't understand what you mean, dear," Gregory replied, his voice carrying the weariness of a man who had had this conversation 1,000 times. "That girl, over there." Vivian's voice became a stage whisper, perfectly audible in the quiet room. "She's dressed like she's going to the gym, probably got in with someone's guest pass. This used to be a private place, Gregory. Private." Elena closed her laptop with deliberate calm. She put it in her backpack, zipped it up, and stood up. She was tall, and when she turned, she made direct eye contact with Vivian Ashworth for exactly 2 seconds. Vivian was just as Elena expected. Late 40s, platinum blonde hair dyed stiff, wearing what was probably an $8,000 beige Hermes suit, but somehow it made her look like an expensive piece of furniture. Cartier jewelry sparkled on her wrists and neck. Her husband Gregory looked pale and soft-spoken in his expensive but wrinkled suit, staring at his scotch as if it held answers. Elena didn't say a word. She slung her backpack over her shoulder and walked toward the exit, her Converse sneakers squeaking softly on the polished floor. If you were in Elena's place, how would you react? Behind her, Vivian's triumphant voice rang out. "See, they leave when you apply a little pressure. Standards, Gregory. That's all I want. Standards." Elena pushed open the glass doors and entered the terminal. The anger was there, always there, but she had learned to suppress it, to store it like potential energy. She would need it later. Gate C14 was a 15-minute walk away. Flight 847 to Miami. Boarding would begin in 20 minutes. She grabbed a bottle of water from the vending machine, checked her phone, and saw 3 missed calls from her COO, Marcus Chen. She called him back. "Elena, thank goodness," Marcus answered immediately. "Where are you? Is the citation still on the ground?" he asked. "Still on the ground," Elena confirmed. "The bird strike caused more damage than they thought. They're replacing the entire left engine cowling. I'll be flying on a commercial plane. Meridian 847, direct to Miami," she replied. "You're flying on our own airline," Marcus said slowly. "Undercover." "Correct. That's either brilliant or insane." "Both," Elena said. "I want to see what the service is really like when no one knows the owner is on board. We'll announce the purchase within 36 hours. I need to know what I'm getting into," she replied. Marcus sighed. "The board will go crazy when they find out a 29-year-old engineer bought a controlling stake in their companies," he said. "That's why I'm bringing the wingtip modifications," Elena said. "Before they finish their welcome speeches, I'll show them we'll save $3.3 million a year. It's hard to argue with someone who saves you $3 million. Still, are you flying economy class?" Marcus asked. Elena looked at her boarding pass on her phone. "Seat 3A. First class." "No, I'm in 3A. My assistant booked it. It was the only seat she could find on short notice, she replied. Okay. Good. Listen, Elena, be careful. You know how these old airlines are, an old boys' club. You're going to walk into the boardroom and tell them that a black woman half their age is now their boss. They're not going to take that well. I know, Elena said quietly. That's why I'm doing this. If I can't handle a 3-hour flight, I can't handle that boardroom. When the gate attendant's voice crackled over the loudspeaker, Elena ended the call. Boarding has begun for Meridian Airways Flight 807 to Miami. First-class passengers and Platinum Elite members, please proceed to the gate. Elena joined the queue. 3 people ahead. She spotted Vivian and Gregory Ashworth. Vivian's perfectly styled hair swirled as she scanned the crowd with the attentiveness of someone convinced the world was constantly trying to lower her standards. When Vivian's eyes landed on Elena, her expression shifted from mild annoyance to outright disbelief. You're kidding, Vivian muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Gregory, she's flying first class. How is that possible, she asked. She couldn't believe Elena could fly first class. Gregory said nothing, staring at the boarding pass as if it were a removal order. Elena kept her expression neutral. She scanned her boarding pass, walked down the jet bridge, and boarded the plane. The Embraer E195-E3 was her baby. She had worked on fly-by-wire control architecture during her graduate research at MIT, then spent 2 years developing that architecture at Embraer's Engineering Center in São José dos Campos, Brazil. The plane's responsive, intuitive controls were the result of her code, algorithms, and thousands of hours of testing, and now 42 of them belonged to her. The first-class cabin was small. Elena carefully placed her backpack in the overhead compartment because those notebooks were more valuable than the plane and sat down. The seat was comfortable. It was leather. The lumbar support was good. She had mentioned this in her refurbishment suggestions 3 years ago. Behind her she heard Vivian's voice, sharpened with anger. Excuse me, young man." Elena didn't turn around. She took out her phone, connected to the plane's Wi-Fi. Meridian's bandwidth was good, she noted, and opened her encrypted email. "Yes, ma'am?" A professional but tense male voice. This person was a flight attendant. "There's a mistake," said Vivian. "My seat should be 3A. I'm a Platinum Elite member. I specifically requested a window seat for medical reasons. My circulation. I need to elevate my legs." Elena's eyes drifted to the aisle. She could see Vivian's reflection in the window. The woman was wearing 10-centimeter Louboutin heels. Medical reasons. Of course, she thought. "Ma'am, let me check," said the flight attendant. Elena heard the rustle of the tablet. The person assigned to seat 3A, Elena Volkov. "You, ma'am, are in seat 4C. That's also by the window," she replied. "4C is in the second row," Vivian hissed. "I don't sit in the second row, I sit in the first row. There must be a computer error. That girl," Vivian's voice was venomous, "is probably flying on miles or some kind of promotional ticket. I'm a paying customer. I'm a Platinum Elite member. Fix this," she said. Elena finally turned in her seat. She looked at the flight attendant, Marcus Webb, according to his name tag. Mid-30s, white, military haircut, the stiff posture of someone in uniform. "Is there a problem?" Elena asked, her voice calm. Marcus looked at her, and Elena saw him calculating in real time. She saw his MIT hoodie. She saw his ripped jeans. She saw his skin tone, and his face hardened. "Ma'am," Marcus said to Elena, his tone shifting from professional to condescending. "There's a problem with the seat. Ms. Ashworth is a Platinum Elite member with medical needs. Would you mind moving to another seat so we can accommodate her?" Elena blinked. "Excuse me, what?" she replied with a question. "Just a seat, ma'am," said Marcus, his smile strained. "We would be very grateful for your cooperation. We have a nice window seat in 4C, he replied. "I'm in 3A, Elena interjected, her voice still calm but beginning to sharpen. "That's my assigned seat. I won't be moving." Vivian pushed past Marcus, who was standing in the aisle, a mask of righteous anger on her face. "Of course you won't move. People like you never do. You act like you own the plane just because you got a little upgrade," she sneered. The irony was so deep that Elena almost laughed. "Miss Ashworth, please," Marcus said, trying to regain control. But Elena could see in his eyes that he had already made up his mind. He was siding with the woman in her mess, not the hoodie. "Ma'am," Marcus said, turning to Elena, "I must insist. Miss Ashworth got here first. This seat was assigned to me when I made my reservation 6 hours ago," Elena said, pulling out her phone and showing her boarding pass. "Seat 3A, Elena Volkov. Right here." Marcus barely glanced at her. "Sometimes the system double books. It's a mistake. The easiest solution is for you to move to seat 4C, he replied. "It's not a mistake," Elena said, her voice hardening, "and I'm not moving." Vivian held her breath theatrically. "This is ridiculous. Gregory, call someone. Call the captain. This woman is refusing to comply with crew instructions. Gregory, still standing in the aisle with his carry-on, looked like he wanted to sink into the carpet. Vivian, maybe we should just honor. Don't you dare, Vivian snapped. I will not be disrespected by a... She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. The words hung in the air, unsaid but understood by everyone in the cabin. Marcus stood up straight. Ma'am, I am giving you a direct order from the flight crew. You need to move to 4C, or I will have to remove you from the flight, he said. Elena looked at him. She really looked at him. Are you threatening to remove me from this flight because I refuse to give up my assigned seat to someone else? She asked. I'm asking for your cooperation, Marcus said, clenching his jaw. And I'm refusing, Elena said. Well, what's your next move, Marcus? She said. His eyes narrowed. I'll call the captain. Fine, Elena said. Call the captain. Marcus made a sharp turn and walked toward the cockpit. Vivian stood in the aisle, arms crossed, with an air of smug triumph. You people, Vivian said, softly, addressing only Elena. You always make everything difficult. You've tasted how the others live once, and you think you belong there. Elena looked into her eyes. You don't know who you're talking to, she said. Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to, said Vivian. A girl who wears a hood over her head, who got lucky with a seat upgrade. Enjoy it, sweetie. People like you don't stay in first class for long, she continued her insults. How would you react if you were subjected to the humiliation or discrimination Elena experienced? Elena smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. You're right about one thing, Vivian. This won't last long. But not for the reason you think, she replied. Before Vivian could respond, a man in a captain's uniform emerged from the cockpit. Captain Raymond Cole was just as Elena had expected. Fair-skinned, in his late 50s, silver-haired, with 4 stripes on his shoulders, and the air of someone who had been in command for so long that he had forgotten a sense of responsibility. What's the problem? Captain Cole asked. Marcus pointed to Elena. Captain, this passenger is refusing to change seats to make room for Miss Ashworth, who has medical needs and elite status, he replied. Captain Cole looked at Elena. He made his decision instantly. Ma'am, said Captain Cole, I must ask you to move to 4C. Miss Ashworth is one of our most valued customers. Elena leaned back in her seat. Captain, I have a question for you, she said. I didn't come here to answer questions, said Cole. I came here to fly this plane on time. Do you know who owns this airline? Asked Elena. Cole blinked in surprise at this question. Meridian Airways is a private company. What does that have to do with you? He asked. It was sold 36 hours ago, Elena continued. Did you know that? Cole's face darkened. I don't understand what that has to do with anything. Now are you going to change seats? Or should I call airport security? He said. Elena reached into her pocket and took out her phone. She unlocked it, went to her encrypted email, and held the phone up. I'm not moving, Captain Cole, because this is my seat, on my airline, which I just bought, and you're about to make the biggest mistake of your career. The cabin fell silent. Cole stared at the phone screen. Marcus leaned over to read it. The look of triumph on Vivian's face gave way to shock. The email's subject line was very clear. Meridian Airways acquisition completed. E. Volkov, majority shareholder. The bronzed look of confidence on Captain Cole's face turned to a pale shock in less than 3 seconds. This can't be possible, Cole stammered. Elena stood up and turned to him. Let me be very clear, Captain. Elena said, you threatened to throw the owner of this airline off his own plane because a passenger with no medical issues wanted his seat. You didn't check my ID. You didn't verify the facts. You sided with the person who seemed appropriate and rejected the person who wasn't. She turned to Marcus. And you, Marcus Webb, did the same thing. You saw my clothes and made a decision. You violated basic protocol and tried to put one person's preference above another's rights. Vivian's face turned pale as she finally understood the situation. Wait, you're lying. This can't be, she continued. I can prove it, Elena said, pulling out her driver's license and company ID card. She handed them to Captain Cole. The captain looked at them, his hands trembling. Elena Volkov, Embraer Chief Engineer. ICAO Certified Airworthiness Inspector. Oh my God, Cole whispered. Now, Elena said, we're going to do this properly. Ms. Ashworth, return to your assigned seat. 4C. Captain Cole, return to the cockpit. Marcus, retrieve my bag from the overhead compartment and place it carefully on the seat next to me. Then stand at the front of the cabin and do not speak to me unless I speak to you. Do you understand? She asked. No one moved. I said, Elena repeated. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied. Vivian didn't move. Gregory grabbed his wife's arm. Vivian, go, now, he said. But get up. Gregory hissed and pulled her toward row 4. Captain Cole slowly backed away and returned to the cockpit like a man walking to his execution. Elena sat down in 3A. Marcus, his hands trembling, carefully took his backpack from the overhead compartment and placed it on the seat next to him. "Thank you, Marcus," Elena said quietly. "You can go now," she said. Marcus nodded and retreated to the galley. Elena took out her phone and sent a single message to her COO, Marcus Chen. "We have a problem. I'll explain after landing. Prepare termination papers for Captain Raymond Cole and Faye Marcus Webb. Also prepare the PR crisis plan. Things are going to get ugly." The reply came instantly. "What happened?" Elena wrote, "They tried to remove me from my own plane." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Oh my God." Elena lifted her phone, leaned her head back, and closed her eyes. The plane's engines started. The door closed with a heavy thud, and Flight 8047 taxied away from the gate, carrying a crew whose careers were ruined and a passenger who held their fate in her hands. The plane hadn't even taken off yet. The Embraer E195-E3 climbed smoothly to 15,000 feet, piercing a thin layer of stratus clouds and emerging into the bright November sunlight. In the cockpit, Captain Raymond Cole and his first officer, a young man named David Park, flew in tense silence. "Captain," David said carefully, "what exactly happened out there?" Cole didn't respond immediately. After a moment, "That woman," Cole finally said, his voice tense. "Elena Volkov. She claims to be the airline's owner." David turned his head toward him. "What did she say?" "She showed me an email. Company acquisition. Majority shareholder. Apparently, it was legitimate." "Captain, that's impossible. Meridian has been a family company for 30 years. The board doesn't control private sales," Cole cut him off. "If the family wants to sell, they can. And apparently they did." To a 29-year-old MIT guy in a damn hoodie, David was silent for a long time. "What are we gonna do?" "We're gonna fly the plane," Cole said firmly. "We'll land in Miami, and then we'll start looking for new jobs." Behind them, the cockpit door remained firmly closed. Neither man wanted to face those waiting in the cabin. In seat 3A, Elena Volkov opened her laptop. The Wi-Fi connection was stable. She had checked it during connection improvements 2 years ago. Using her newly activated executive credentials, she logged into Meridian Airways' internal server. The system accepted her login immediately. "Welcome, Miss Volkov, owner-president." She went to the crew management portal and opened the personnel files of Captain Raymond Cole and flight attendant Marcus Webb. Cole's file was quite extensive. He had worked at Meridian for 32 years. He had been promoted to captain in 2004. His training certificates were current. However, as Elena reviewed the passenger feedback scores, a familiar pattern emerged. Passenger satisfaction by demographic data: white passengers, 94%, black passengers, 71%, Hispanic passengers, 73%, Asian passengers, 89%. A 23-point difference between white and black passengers. For over a decade, consistent. "Here you are," Elena murmured. She opened Marcus Webb's file. A shorter service record, 5 years. Former Air Force member, honorable discharge. But the same pattern in feedback scores. Passenger satisfaction by demographic data: white passengers, 91%, black passengers, 68%, Hispanic passengers, 70%, Asian passengers, 87%. Elena leaned back, her jaw tight. This wasn't just 2 bad employees. It was a systemic problem. At the airline she had just acquired, no one had addressed the issue because the numbers were acceptable. She opened a new email to Marcus Chen. "Retrieve the satisfaction data for the entire Meridian flight crew. I want the demographic breakdown of every employee. If this trend exists company-wide, we will implement mandatory bias training before I step into the boardroom. I will not own a discriminatory airline." When Marcus Webb appeared in the aisle with a tray holding a champagne glass and a linen napkin, Elena sent the email. "Miss Volkov," Marcus said, carefully keeping his voice neutral. "May I offer a pre-takeoff beverage? Champagne, mineral water, or—" "Water is fine," Elena said, without looking at him. Marcus placed the water on the tray with trembling hands and backed away. 4 rows back, Vivian Ashworth sat stiffly in seat 4C, staring at the back of the seat in front of her. Gregory sat next to her in seat 4D, his face buried in his hands. "This can't be," Vivian whispered. "This can't be." "It is," hissed Gregory. "You just tried to steal the seat from the woman who owns the airline. Do you realize what you did?" "I didn't know." Vivian's voice rose. "How could I have known? She was dressed like..." "Don't," Gregory warned. "Don't finish that sentence. You've already done enough damage." Vivian pulled out her phone with trembling hands and opened Google. She typed, "Elena Volkov, MIT." The results loaded. Elena Volkov, 29, aeronautical engineer, lead designer of the Embraer E195-E3 fly-by-wire system. MIT, PhD in aeronautical engineering. age 24. Over 50 patents in aviation control systems. Vivian frantically scrolled down the page. Volkov acquired Meridian Airways in a $2.1 billion deal. The private transaction was completed on November 15. The board announcement will be made in Miami on November 18. The article had been published 36 hours ago. It was real. Everything was real. Vivian's phone slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. "Gregory," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Gregory, what are we going to do?" Gregory didn't respond. He was watching the clouds outside the window, thinking about how his wife's claim had ruined both their lives in less than 20 minutes. When the flight reached cruising altitude, the seatbelt sign turned off. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt and picked up the backpack sitting on the seat next to her. She needed to review her presentation notes for the board meeting. As she unzipped the bag, Marcus Webb appeared in the aisle again, this time balancing a tray of champagne glasses professionally. "Champagne service," Marcus announced to the cabin, his voice tense but professional. Elena barely noticed him. She pulled out 3 engineering notebooks, leather-bound, with dates and project codes handwritten inside. These weren't just notes, they were proprietary research worth tens of millions of dollars. Wing modifications, control system updates, fuel efficiency improvements. Things she had been working on for the past 18 months. Marcus moved down the aisle, serving the other first-class passengers. When he reached row 4, Vivian looked at him with desperate eyes. "I'll have champagne," Vivian said, her voice thickening. "Double portion." "Ma'am, we're serving single portions," Marcus said in a mechanical voice. "Then bring me 2, snapped Vivian, her old anger returning slightly. "I'm a paying customer. I can have 2. Marcus shook his head to avoid further conflict. "Of course, ma'am." He returned to the kitchen, grabbed 2 glasses, and approached row 4 again. His hands were still shaking from the earlier confrontation. His career was over. He knew it. Everyone knew it. The woman in 3A, the woman who had threatened to have him removed from the plane, owned the airline. He would be fired before the plane even landed. As she bent down to place the 2 glasses on Vivian's tray, her thumb slipped on the base of the second glass. The glass tilted. Time seemed to slow down. Elena was sitting right in front of them, in the 3rd row, her backpack open on her lap, 3 irreplaceable notebooks spread out on her tray, the champagne, 350 ml of expensive French wine spread through the air in a perfect disastrous arc. It hit the middle notebook with a wet splash, soaking the leather cover and seeping into the pages. "No!" Elena lunged forward, but it was too late. The champagne spread like a virus, seeping into pages filled with hand-drawn technical diagrams, stress calculations, and months of specialized research. "Oh my God," Marcus froze. I didn't mean to." Elena grabbed the notebook and shook it, but the damage was already done. The ink was flowing. The pages were soaked. Irreplaceable, hand-drawn, undigitized diagrams were disappearing before her eyes. "You idiot!" Elena finally lost her composure and shouted. "Do you know what this is?" Marcus froze, empty champagne glass in hand. Behind them, Vivian let out a tense, shrill laugh. "That's what happens when you leave important work on an airplane tray." Elena turned her head toward her. "I don't understand." "I'm just saying," Vivian continued with shock and the courage of her first glass of champagne. "If it was really that important, you wouldn't have put it somewhere where something could spill on it. It's just common sense." Elena slowly stood up. Champagne dripped from the notebook onto the floor of the champagne cabinet. "Marcus," Elena said, her voice deadly quiet, "call the captain. Now." "Miss Volkov, I can get a towel. I call the captain now." Marcus stumbled toward the cockpit, knocked twice, and entered. 10 seconds later, Captain Cole appeared, his face drained. "Miss Volkov, as I understand it, this notebook," Elena cut him off, lifting the wet, ruined notebook, "contains 18 months of specialized research on modifications to the control system of the E-95 E-3 aircraft, the plane we are currently flying. The modifications include critical safety enhancements I plan to implement fleet-wide." Cole's face turned pale. I don't understand. This notebook," Elena continued, her voice rising, "is now compromised. The structural integrity of the data has been compromised. This means I can no longer approve the safety recommendations I plan to submit to the FAA next week." She took a step toward Cole. "And as an ICAO certified airworthiness inspector, I am now obligated to submit a safety concern report regarding this aircraft type." Cole's eyes widened. "Miss Volkov, please, this is an accident. Is that so?" Elena's voice rang out like a whip. "An accident caused by a crew member you failed to properly supervise? A crew member working under emotional distress because of your illegal discriminatory seat assignment decision?" She pulled out her phone. "What are you doing?" Cole asked, his voice slightly louder than a whisper. "I'm calling the FAA emergency line," Elena said, "and I'm reporting an emergency airworthiness concern for the entire E-195 E-3 fleet." "You can't do that," Cole whispered. "You'll ground all Embraer aircraft in the U.S. "I can," Elena said, dialing the number. "And I will." Because I designed this aircraft's fly-by-wire system, Captain. I know exactly how to trigger a mandatory safety review, and right now, given what happened on this flight, I no longer trust Meridian Airways to operate this type of aircraft safely. The phone rang once, twice. FAA Flight Standards, this is Inspector Morrison. Elena's voice took on a completely professional calm. Inspector Morrison, this is Dr. Elena Volkov, ICAO Airworthiness Inspector, certificate number November 742 Alpha. I am reporting an urgent safety issue pursuant to 14 CFR 121 TAWAV. Cole's face turned as white as snow. Continue, Dr. Volkov. I am currently on Meridian Airways Flight 847, an Embraer E195-E3, registration number N847MD. I have reason to believe that the crew has operational safety concerns regarding resource management and document security, and that this situation jeopardizes the airworthiness of this aircraft and potentially the entire Meridian E195 fleet. A pause. Dr. Volkov, are you declaring an emergency during the flight? No, the aircraft is mechanically sound. However, I am requesting that the airline immediately suspend all E195 operations until the investigation is complete. Another pause. This one longer. Dr. Volkov, this is a significant decision. Can you confirm your authority? My IA credentials are current. I am also the chief designer of this aircraft's fly-by-wire control system, and as of 36 hours ago, the majority shareholder of Meridian Airways. The longest pause yet. Hold on, Dr. Volkov. Elena waited, her eyes fixed on Captain Cole's face. Behind her, she could hear Vivian breathing heavily in panic. The FAA inspector came back on the line. Dr. Volkov, I have verified your credentials and ownership status. We are issuing an immediate operational hold on Meridian Airways E195 operations. Flight 847 will continue to Miami as scheduled, but the aircraft will be impounded for inspection after landing. All other Meridian E195 flights are to be grounded immediately. Understood, Elena said. Thank you, Inspector. She hung up the phone. The cabin fell silent. Captain Cole looked at her, opening and closing his mouth without making a sound. Just now, he whispered finally, you grounded our entire fleet. No, Elena said coldly. You did. When you decided to threaten the airline's owner. When you failed to control a crew member who destroyed critical safety documents. This is your fault, Captain. She sat back down and carefully gathered the ruined notebook pages. Now get back to the cockpit and fly this plane to Miami, and pray you still have a job when we land. Cole staggered backward, turned into the cockpit, and closed the door. In row 4, Vivian Ashworth let out a muffled sob. We're going to crash, she cried. We won't crash, Gregory said, gritting his teeth. But our lives will. Elena opened her laptop and sent a new email to Marcus Chen. The situation has worsened. I've requested an emergency safety halt from the FAA. The entire E195 fleet has been grounded. I'll explain after landing. Prepare the entire management team and legal team for emergency crisis management. This is now a federal investigation. The reply came within seconds. What? Elena wrote, I'll explain everything. Be ready. Marcus, start preparing my speech for the board meeting. We're not postponing the meeting, we're moving it up, tomorrow morning. While the FAA inspects the grounded fleets, they'll meet their new owners. I want them to understand exactly who they're dealing with. She shut down her laptop and looked out the window at the clouds rushing by at 500 miles per hour. In the kitchen, Marcus Webb sat in a folding chair, his head in his hands, his career ruined. In the cockpit, Captain Cole flew on autopilot, knowing he was part of the most expensive discrimination lawsuit in aviation history. And in the fourth row, Vivian Ashworth finally understood what her standards had cost. Not just a seat, everything. As Elena finished her call with the FAA, her phone began to vibrate with incoming calls. She looked at the screen. Her COO, Marcus Chen, was calling for the third time in 2 minutes. She answered. Elena, what's going on? Marcus's voice was tense with controlled panic. I got a warning from the FAA. They're grounding our entire E195 fleet. Every single plane. Do you know what that means? We have 19 planes in the air right now. 19 flights telling their passengers they're landing and going nowhere. I know exactly what it means, Elena said quietly. I initiated the safety hold. Silence. Then, what did you do? A crew member wiped out 18 months of special security research. On this plane, while I was traveling as a passenger. This investigation was part of our certification package for control system upgrades, due to be submitted to the FAA next week. Now it's ruined. I have no choice but to report a security concern. Elena. Marcus's voice lowered. Do you understand the financial impact? We're talking about millions of dollars in lost revenue, stranded passengers, canceled flights. The board will go berserk. The board. Elena said in a cold voice, will sit and listen when I explain that their captain tried to illegally remove me from my own aircraft and that the flight crew destroyed critical safety documents. This isn't a PR issue, Marcus. This is now a federal investigation, and I'm going to use it to clean up the company. Another pause. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. Now get the legal department on the phone. I want full documentation of every discriminatory incident in Meridian's history. Lawsuits, complaints, settled cases, everything. If I'm burning this down, I'm going to rebuild it properly. Understood, said Marcus. Where are you landing? Miami. 2 hours. I'll assemble a team. Elena, be careful. You just declared war on an entire airline culture. Fine, said Elena. I've been preparing for this war my entire life. She hung up when the cockpit intercom crackled to life. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Cole. His voice was tense and mechanical. Air traffic control has announced an operational shutdown affecting Meridian Airways, encompassing the entire fleet. This does not affect the safety of this flight. We will continue to Miami as planned. However, after landing, all passengers will be directed to alternative carriers to continue their journeys. We apologize for this inconvenience. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing procedures. The cabin was in turmoil. What does this mean? Asked a businessman in the second row, half rising. Operational shutdown? Is there a problem with the plane? Are we safe? A woman across the aisle clung to her husband's arm. Marcus Webb emerged from the galley, his face pale. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. The aircraft is completely safe. This is purely an administrative matter. Administrative? The businessman persisted. The FAA doesn't ground an entire fleet for paperwork. What's really going on? All eyes turned to Elena. She sat motionless at the tray table with her ruined notebook, her expression unreadable. The businessman's eyes narrowed. You made a phone call. What did you do? Elena looked at him. I reported a safety concern using my authority as an ICAO airworthiness inspector. That's what I did. A security concern. The man's voice rose. You stranded thousands of passengers because of a security concern. Are you out of your mind? No, Elena said calmly. I'm meticulous. And when critical safety documents are destroyed due to crew negligence, I don't take risks. She pointed to the champagne-soaked notebook. This contains changes to the fly-by-wire control system for this exact aircraft model. These changes were scheduled for approval next week. Now they can't be approved. That means I have to confirm that the current system flying us right now is still operating within acceptable parameters. The businessman paled. So, are you saying this plane might not be safe? I'm saying, Elena replied, her voice calm, I have no intention of approving it until I'm certain. Would you prefer me to keep quiet and hope for the best? The cabin fell silent. In the fourth row, Vivian Ashworth let out a choking sound. This is your fault, she hissed at Elena. All of this. You're doing this over a seat. A seat. You're punishing everyone because you couldn't get what you wanted. Elena turned in her seat, her eyes locked on Vivian's. No, Mrs. Ashworth. I'm doing this because your entitlement and this crew's discrimination created an unsafe environment. You wanted my seat so badly that you were willing to lie about medical needs. The crew was so eager to please you that they violated protocol. And that same crew, working under stress and distraction, destroyed critical safety documents. She stood up and turned to face the entire cabin. Everyone on this plane has been affected because 2 people decided that my appearance was more important than what was written on my ticket. This isn't about a seat. This is about a broken system, and I'm fixing it. The businessman slowly sat down. No one spoke. Elena sat back down and opened her laptop. She had work to do. In the cockpit, First Officer David Park looked at the radio screen. Captain, we're getting requests from ATC. They want to know our fuel situation and if we require priority handling. Captain Cole's hands were white on the control column. Tell them there's no problem. Normal approach. Captain, David said carefully. No problem? He grounded the entire fleet. What if he's right? What if there is a problem with the plane? There's no problem with the plane, Cole snapped. He's taking revenge, that's all. He designed the plane's control system, David pointed out. If there's a problem, he's the one who knows best. Cole said nothing. He couldn't. Because David was right, and the terrible truth was that Elena Volkov had more authority over this plane than he did. She built the plane. He was just flying it. Miami approach, Cole said into his radio, his voice flat. Meridian 8047 requesting vector to ILS approach runway 9. Meridian 8047, Miami approach. Airport authorities have been notified of your arrival. Emergency vehicles will be standing by as a precaution. Roger, Cole said. Emergency vehicles. The final humiliation. His last flight as Meridian captain would end with fire trucks and ambulances waiting on the runway, because the airline's owner, the woman he'd tried to throw off the plane, had declared his aircraft unsafe. 32 years of flying. It was all over. The landing in Miami went smoothly. The plane performed flawlessly, its fly-by-wire system responding to every command with the precision Elena had designed years ago. The irony didn't escape her. The plane was perfect. The problem was the people operating it. When the landing gear deployed with a reassuring sound, Elena shut down her laptop and looked out the window. The Miami coastline sparkled in the afternoon sun. The turquoise waters of Biscayne Bay stretched out below, dotted with yachts and cargo ships. Somewhere below, the new management team was gathering. The legal department was preparing summaries. The public relations department was drafting statements. And tomorrow morning, she would walk into the conference room and take control of the airline she had just landed. The wheels touched down on the runway with almost no jolt. Captain Cole, to his credit, made a perfect landing. As the plane slowed and taxied, Elena saw them: 3 fire trucks, 2 ambulances, and a fleet of black SUVs. Airport officials, FAA inspectors, and almost certainly the media. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus Webb's voice came over the speaker, slightly trembling. "Welcome to Miami. Please remain seated until the aircraft has come to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign has been turned off. On behalf of Meridian Airways, we apologize for the inconvenience." The plane stopped not at the gate, but in a remote parking area away from the terminal. The engine slowed, the cabin lights flickered, and through the window Elena saw a man in a dark suit approaching the plane, accompanied by FAA inspectors wearing high-visibility vests. Her phone rang. "Marcus Chen. The legal team is on the ground. The FAA chief inspector wants to speak with you first. The media has broken the story. Everywhere. Tech billionaire grounds airline over discrimination. You're trending nationwide." Elena texted back, "Fine. Let them watch. That's what accountability is." The plane door opened with a hydraulic hiss. The jetway wasn't connected. They weren't going to the gate. Instead, a set of mobile stairs was brought to the door. A man in a dark suit climbed the stairs and entered the cabin. He was in his 50s, black, with short cropped gray hair and an expression like he'd seen it all before. "Dr. Volkov," he said, his voice authoritative. "That's me," said Elena, standing up. "I'm Chief Inspector Marcus Williams, FAA Flight Standards. I need to speak with you immediately." "Of course," said Elena. She picked up her backpack, carefully, as it still contained the ruined notebook, and followed him to the front of the cabin. As she passed the 4th row, Vivian Ashworth looked up, her face covered in tears and ruined makeup. "Please," Vivian whispered. "Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Elena stopped. She looked at her. "You didn't mean to be racist? Or did you not want to get caught?" Vivian couldn't answer. Elena continued walking. At the plane door, Captain Cole stood stiffly, a controlled look of fear on his face. Marcus Webb stood beside him, trembling. "Gentlemen," Inspector Williams said, "you both need to give statements. FAA inspectors will take you to a private room." "Am I under arrest?" Cole asked, his voice shaking. "Not at this moment," said Williams, "but this is a federal investigation into possible security breaches and discrimination complaints. I strongly advise you to cooperate fully." 2 FAA inspectors stepped forward and motioned for Cole and Webb to follow them. Cole stopped as he passed Elena. "You ruined me," he said quietly. "Was it worth it?" Elena looked him in the eye. "Ask yourself that question, Captain. You threatened to remove a passenger from their assigned seat because of their appearance. You violated federal anti-discrimination laws, and your crew's negligence destroyed critical safety documents. I didn't ruin you. You ruined yourself." Cole didn't respond. He descended the stairs, 4 captain stripes catching the Miami sunlight one last time. Elena followed Chief Inspector Williams down the stairs and across the tarmac to a waiting black SUV. As she walked, she saw camera crews in the distance, zoom lenses trained on them. "Dr. Volkov," Williams said as he got into the SUV, "I've reviewed your credentials. MIT doctorate, lead designer of the E9 fly-by-wire system, 53 patents, ICAO airworthiness inspector. You're legitimate." "I am," Elena confirmed. "Then explain this to me," said Williams, as the SUV pulled away from the planes. "Why did you implement an emergency safety shutdown for the entire fleet because of a spilled drink?" Elena pulled the ruined notebook from her backpack and handed it to him. "This isn't about a spilled drink, Inspector. This notebook contained 18 months of specialized research on control system improvements for the E9 E3. Stress calculations, software modifications, hardware updates. Next week it was to be submitted to the FAA as part of the certification package for a fleet-wide upgrade." Williams carefully opened the notebook and scanned the water-damaged pages with his trained eyes. Though ruined, its technical sophistication was evident. This is important work," Williams said slowly. "It represents over $40 million in R&D, Elena said, "and now it's unusable. The structural integrity of the calculations is compromised. I cannot approve these changes without repeating 18 months of testing." "But the current system," said Williams, "is already approved and flying. Are you saying it's unsafe?" "No," Elena said carefully. "I am saying that due to the gross negligence I have observed, I have lost confidence in Meridian Airways' ability to safely operate and maintain these aircraft. A crew member working under pressure from discriminatory leadership decisions destroyed critical documents. This indicates to me systemic issues with crew resource management, stress protocols, and safety culture. Williams was silent for a long time. "You're not wrong," he said finally, "but do you understand the economic impact? Meridian has 42 E-195 aircraft. All of them are currently grounded. Thousands of passengers are stranded. Millions of dollars in revenue have been lost." "I understand very well," said Elena. "I own the airline. This is costing me millions of dollars. But I'd rather lose money than lives, wouldn't you?" Williams smiled slightly. "Dr. Volkov, I think we're going to get along very well." The SUV pulled up to a private terminal building. Inside, Elena could see her team gathered: COO Marcus Chen, Chief Legal Counsel Jennifer Park, and Public Relations Director Robert Okoye. "We're going to conduct a full security inspection," said Williams. "All E-195s in the fleet. It will take at least 72 hours. If we find anything to support your security concerns, the flight ban will remain in place until the issue is resolved. If we don't, you'll need to provide documentation justifying the ban." "You'll find plenty," said Elena. "I guarantee it. Start with the crew training records. Look at discrimination complaints. Check maintenance logs for any incidents caused by crew stress or carelessness. A pattern will emerge." Williams nodded. "We'll conduct a thorough investigation. But Dr. Volkov, I have to ask, is this really about safety, or is it retaliation for how you were treated?" Elena looked him in the eye. "Inspector Williams, I am a black woman who has been told my entire career that I don't belong. In engineering labs, in boardrooms, and today, on my own plane, I've learned that the system doesn't change because you politely ask it to. The system changes when you make it impossible for it to continue as it is." She leaned forward. "Yes, I'm angry. Yes, I've been discriminated against. But that discrimination directly led to the destruction of critical safety research. This isn't retaliation. This is cause and effect. And I'm forcing this airline, my airline, to face that consequence." Williams studied her for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. "Welcome to airline ownership, Dr. Volkov. You've made a great start." Elena shook his hand. "Thank you, Inspector. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for the board meeting. We're moving the meeting to tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" Williams raised his eyebrows. "When your fleet can't fly." "Especially when my fleet can't fly," Elena said. "The board is about to learn that the new owner won't tolerate discrimination, won't accept mediocrity, and won't allow a broken culture to continue simply because it's always been that way." She got out of the SUV and walked toward the terminal where her team was waiting. Behind her, through the terminal windows, Flight 847 was surrounded by emergency vehicles and investigators. A $45 million machine had been immobilized by the woman who designed it. Vivian Ashworth and Gregory Ashworth were being removed from the plane by airport officials. Their faces were pale. They had forgotten their expensive luggage. Captain Raymond Cole was being taken to the FAA interrogation room. His career was now measured in hours, not years. Marcus Webb sat alone in the crew area, his head in his hands, realizing too late that 20 seconds of inattention had cost him everything. The system was failing, and Elena Volkov had only just begun. Meridian Airways corporate headquarters was located in a sleek glass tower overlooking Biscayne Bay in downtown Miami. The boardroom on the 24th floor was designed to intimidate: 6-meter ceilings, a Brazilian rosewood table that could seat 18, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the Atlantic Ocean. The next morning at 9 a.m., the room was filled with attention so thick it was almost suffocating. 12 board members sat around the table, their faces displaying a range of emotions from confusion to barely suppressed anger. At the head of the table sat Harrison Caldwell, 71, the former CEO and patriarch of the family that had owned Meridian for 30 years. He was a tall, silver-haired man with the demeanor of someone accustomed to absolute authority. Next to him sat his 48-year-old daughter, Patricia Caldwell Morrison, the former COO who was waiting to take control of the airline. Her expression was icy. "This is ridiculous," Patricia said, her voice sharp. "We were told this meeting was mandatory. We were told the new owner wanted us here. But where is this mysterious new owner? We've been sitting here for 15 minutes. Elena's COO, Marcus Chen, stood by the door. "Miss Volkov will be here shortly. She's currently in a conference call with the FAA. "The FAA," Harrison Caldwell grumbled. "Yes, let's talk about that. Our entire E-195 fleet has been grounded for 18 hours. Do you know how much that's costing us? $3.2 million in lost revenue per day. Thousands of stranded passengers. Our reputation is plummeting." "I'm aware of the costs, Mr. Caldwell," Marcus said calmly. "Then perhaps you can explain," Patricia interjected, her voice rising, "why the person responsible for this disaster is walking into this conference room expecting us to treat her with respect." Before Marcus could respond, the double doors opened. Elena Volkov entered. She wore a perfectly tailored, custom-made Armani suit in charcoal gray. Her hair was pulled back into a tight bun. She carried a leather briefcase and her usual backpack. The MIT hoodie was gone. This was the CEO, but what froze the room was her age and her face. She was young, she was black, and she radiated absolute confidence. "Good morning," Elena said, her voice calm and clear. She walked to the head of the table, to the chair where Harrison Caldwell always sat. Harrison didn't move. "That's my chair." "No, Mr. Caldwell," said Elena, looking him in the eye. "That was your chair. Now it's mine. I own 51% of this airline. I am the majority shareholder and the chairman of the board. Either you move, or security will escort you out of this building. The choice is yours." The room was in an uproar. "This is ridiculous." Patricia stood up and slammed her hand on the table. "You can't do this." "I already have," Elena cut her off. She placed her purse on the table and pulled out a document. "The transaction was completed 36 hours ago. Your family received $2.1 billion. The documents were submitted to the SEC. I am the legal owner of this company." She looked around the room. "Now, Mr. Caldwell, are you moving, or should I call security?" Harrison Caldwell's face was purple with rage, but he was a businessman and knew he was beaten. He slowly stood up, gathered his papers, and sat down in a chair in the middle of the room. Elena sat down at the head of the table and opened her portfolio. "Let me explain very clearly how this is going to work," she began. "I bought this airline because I saw its potential. 42 planes, profitable routes, a strong operational history. But in the last 36 hours, I discovered something your family hasn't addressed in decades. There is a systemic discrimination problem at this airline." "That's nonsense," Patricia said. "We have diversity initiatives. You have the data," Elena interrupted. She pulled out a document and slid it across the table. "This is your entire flight crew's passenger satisfaction data, broken down by demographic group. Do you see the pattern?" Patricia took the document and scanned it with her eyes. Her face paled. "White passengers rate your crew 15 to 25 points higher than black and Hispanic passengers, across the entire fleet, for over a decade. This isn't an anomaly. This is systematic bias." "These are just numbers," Harrison said, dismissively. "They could mean anything." "They mean," Elena said, her voice hardening, "that your crew treats passengers differently based on their race. And yesterday, on Flight 847, I experienced that discrimination firsthand." She stood up and walked to the windows, looking out at the bay. "I boarded my own plane in my everyday clothes. A passenger, a white woman named Vivian Ashworth, decided I didn't belong in first class. She demanded my seat. Your captain, Raymond, and your flight attendant, Marcus Webb, sided with her. They threatened to remove me from the plane. They did this not because I was causing a disturbance or breaking any rules, but because of my appearance." She returned to the cabin. "And when I refused to leave my seat, when I resisted, things got worse. The flight attendant, working under the stress of discriminatory leadership, destroyed the 18-month critical security research I was carrying. A $40 million study. A study that was supposed to be presented to the FAA next week." "So you grounded the entire fleet," Patricia said bitterly. "You destroyed this company out of spite." "No," Elena said coldly. "I grounded the fleet because I lost trust in your safety culture. If discrimination causes crew distraction and stress, leading them to destroy critical documents, that's a safety issue. The FAA agrees with me. They're conducting a full audit right now." She returned to her seat. "But let's talk about what's really going on in this room. You're all sitting here angry because a 29-year-old black woman has taken over your family's legacy. You find me too young, too inexperienced, and you're thinking about how you can undermine me, remove me, or just wait it out." No one spoke, but a few board members shifted uncomfortably. "Let me save you the trouble," Elena continued. "You can't do that. This company is mine. But more importantly, I know this company. I designed the fly-by-wire system in your E95s. I have 53 patents in aviation control systems. I have a PhD from MIT. And I achieved $3.3 million in annual fuel savings just by modifying the wingtips." She opened her laptop and turned it toward the board. A detailed technical presentation appeared on the screen. "This is what I've been working on for the past 18 months. The destroyed research. But I still have the digital files. These modifications will reduce drag by 3.7%, increase fuel efficiency by 4.2%, and extend range by 90 nautical miles. If you implement this across your entire fleet, you'll save enough money in 6 months to cover the costs of grounded flights." Harrison Caldwell leaned forward and looked at the screen. Despite his anger, he was still a businessman. "Is this legal?" "Beyond legal," said Elena. "It's revolutionary and patented, so no other airline can access this technology without licensing it from me. We can sell these modifications to all E195 operators worldwide. That's an additional $200 million in annual revenue." The room was silent. Calculators were pulled out. Board members were crunching numbers. "But here's the deal," Elena said. "I won't implement any of this until the discrimination issue is resolved. I won't own a profitable airline that treats passengers like trash because of their skin color. "What do you propose?" asked 63-year-old James Richardson, the operations manager and the only board member who remained neutral. "A cultural transformation," said Elena. She pulled out another document. "Mandatory bias training for every employee, not a 2-hour symbolic seminar. Real training, monthly, with exams. Those who fail the exam will be fired." "You can't just fire people," began Patricia. "I can," said Elena, "and I will. Second, we're establishing an independent passenger rights office. Any discrimination complaint will bypass management and go directly to this office. Third, we're analyzing every employee's satisfaction scores. Anyone with a demographic difference exceeding 10% will be flagged for retraining or dismissal." She looked around the room. "This is not up for debate. If you don't like it, you can resign from the board. But I'm the owner, and this is what will happen." Harrison Caldwell was silent for a long time. Then he spoke in a measured voice. "Ms. Volkov, may I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." "Why?" Harrison asked. "Why did you buy an airline you knew had problems? Why put yourself in this position?" Elena was silent for a moment. Then she stood up and walked back to the windows. "When I was 16, she began, her voice quieter, "I flew from Boston to Moscow to visit my mother's family. It was my first time flying alone. I had been accepted on scholarship to a summer engineering program. I was very excited." She returned to the room. "I was sitting in economy class. A flight attendant asked to see my ticket 3 times, not because there was a problem, because she couldn't believe a black teenager could afford an international flight. She wanted me to prove I belonged on that plane." Her voice hardened. "I'm 29 years old, and I'm still being asked to prove I belong in laboratories, in boardrooms. And yesterday on my own plane, I bought this airline because I'm tired of proving myself. I'm going to build a company where no one has to prove they belong, where the only thing that matters is your ticket, not the color of your skin." The room was silent. Harrison Caldwell looked at his daughter, then turned to Elena. She slowly shook her head. "Miss Volkov, I think I understand now. And I think you're exactly what this airline needs." Patricia looked at her father in shock. "Dad, you can't be serious." "Patricia, be quiet," Harrison said sharply. "I've been flying for 50 years, and I've seen what he's talking about. I closed my eyes. I pretended it wasn't there. But it is. And he's right. It's time to fix it." He looked at Elena. "I'm backing you. What do you need?" Elena sat back down. "Captain Raymond Cole and flight attendant Marcus Webb need to be fired. Today, I need to make a press statement announcing cultural reforms. And when the media asks why I grounded our fleet, I need this board to back me up." "Cole has been with us for 32 years, James Richardson said quietly. "He's one of our most senior captains. And he's a liability," Elena said. "The passenger satisfaction scores prove it. He's discriminatory. And yesterday, he threatened the airline's owner. I'm done with him." Richardson nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll take care of the termination paperwork." "What about the passengers?" asked Patricia, her voice still cold. "The Ashworths. They're threatening to sue." Elena smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "Let them sue. We have 200 witnesses and numerous videos showing Vivian Ashworth refusing to show her boarding pass, lying about her medical needs, and making racist comments. She won't win the case, but she will become famous. Meridian Airways Delta Karen." She pulled out her phone and turned it toward the boardroom. A news article appeared on the screen. Pharmaceutical company heiress removed from airline over racist remarks. Banker Gregory Ashworth's wife, Vivian Ashworth, was caught on video demanding a black passenger seat. "This made national news," Elena said. "Vivian Ashworth is trending on social media. Her husband's investment firm issued a statement condemning her behavior. She's finished." Patricia looked at the phone. "God, you ruined her." "No," said Elena. "She ruined herself. I just refused to shield her from the consequences." Marcus Chen, standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. "Ms. Volkov, I heard from the FAA. Inspector Williams wants to speak with you. They've completed their initial inspection." Elena stood up. "Excuse me, I'll be right back." She left the boardroom and walked down the hallway toward her private office. Marcus Chen followed her, handing her a phone. "Inspector Williams," Elena said. "Dr. Volkov." Williams's voice was serious. "We've completed the first phase of the audit. I need to report our findings to you." "Go ahead." "We reviewed the crew training records, maintenance logs, and accident reports for the last 5 years. Dr. Volkov, you were right. We found numerous accidents where crew stress or carelessness compromised safety. Nothing catastrophic, but there was a pattern. We also found evidence of unreported discrimination complaints that were covered up by management." Elena closed her eyes. "How bad?" "Bad enough to extend the flight ban until a full safety culture review is conducted. But Dr. Volkov, I want you to know this isn't your fault. It's the fault of the previous owners. They knew, but they did nothing. How long will the flight ban last? At least 72 hours, maybe a week. But once we clear the fleet, we'll issue a public statement supporting your actions. You did the right thing. Thank you, Inspector. He hung up and returned to the conference room. Everyone's eyes were on him. The FAA has extended the flight ban, Elena said. There will be a full safety culture review. It will take at least a week. Patricia stood up. A week? We'll lose $20 million. Yes, Elena said calmly. We will, but we'll make up for it with the wingtip modifications, and we'll restore our reputation by fixing the culture. This is an investment in the future. She looked around the room. Those who can't accept this can resign, but I won't back down. No one moved. Harrison Caldwell slowly stood up. He extended his hand across the table. Miss Volkov, welcome to Meridian Airways. Let's fix this company together. Elena shook his hand. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Now let's get to work. As the board members left the room discussing the new situation, Elena sat alone at the head of the table. Her phone rang. A message had come from Marcus Chen. Cole and Webb have been officially fired. The press release is ready. Media requests are pouring in. You're on all the major news channels. They want to interview you. Elena replied, schedule the interviews. I want to tell this story. I want every airline in America to know the consequences of discrimination. Set up CNN, MSNBC, and 60 Minutes. She looked at the Miami skyline. Somewhere out there, Vivian Ashworth was learning what it meant to lose everything. Captain Cole was applying for unemployment benefits. Marcus Webb was explaining to his family why his career had ended. And Elena Volkov was just getting started, because this wasn't just about one airline. It was about an entire industry changing, one discriminatory policy at a time. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Meridian Airways headquarters underwent both a physical and philosophical transformation. The sterile and intimidating executive floor was redesigned. Photos of various crew and engineering teams now adorned the walls. On the massive screen in the main lobby, real-time passenger satisfaction scores, no longer secret but open and transparent to everyone, were displayed. Elena Volkov stood in her corner office on the 24th floor, reviewing the quarterly reports on her laptop. The Miami skyline stretched out before her, the morning sun casting golden light over Biscayne Bay. Most days she had swapped her MIT hoodie for custom-tailored business attire, but today, on Saturday, the day for strategic planning, she had once again donned her pale gray sweatshirt, to remind her where she came from and why she was fighting. Her phone rang. It was Marcus Chen calling. Elena, the FAA's final report just came in. You need to see this. Send it. 30 seconds later, the document appeared on her screen. She opened the file and scanned the summary. FAA Safety Culture Audit, Meridian Airways. Final report, 6-month follow-up. Findings: implementation of mandatory bias training completed. Independent Passenger Rights Advocacy Office active. Crew Performance Monitoring System active. Discriminatory incident rate decreased by 91%. Passenger satisfaction gap demographic decreased from 23% to 2%. Conclusion: Meridian Airways has demonstrated a commitment exemplary of safety culture reform. The corrective measures implemented by President Volkov represent industry-leading practices in discrimination prevention and crew resource management. The E-195 fleet has been approved for unrestricted operations. The FAA recommends that Meridian's reform model be adopted industry-wide. Elena leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly. 6 months of hard work. 6 months of resistance, objections, and late nights. But they had succeeded. The phone rang. It was Chief Inspector Marcus Williams calling. Inspector, Elena answered. I just read the report. Dr. Volkov. Williams' voice was warm. I wanted to call you personally. What you've achieved in 6 months is unprecedented. Most airlines spend years implementing this level of cultural change. You did it in half a year. I had no choice, Elena said quietly. It was change or failure. Well, you succeeded. And Elena, may I call you Elena? Of course. Elena, I've worked at the FAA for 28 years. I've investigated crashes, flight bans, and safety violations. But I've never seen anyone turn a crisis into an opportunity like you. You didn't just fix Meridian. You're changing the entire industry. That's my goal, Elena said. One airline at a time. After hanging up, Elena walked to the window. Below, on the runway at Miami International Airport, she could see a Meridian E-195 aircraft being pushed back from the gate. Tail number N847MD. It was the same aircraft from that fateful flight 6 months ago. But now it had a new color scheme. The old Meridian blue and white had been replaced with a modern design. Dark navy with silver accents and a slogan in bold letters along the fuselage. Flying with pride. This was Elena's idea. All the planes in the fleet now carried this message. A public commitment. A promise. Her office door opened. Marcus Chen entered energetically, tablet in hand. "Elena, you need to see the quarterly figures." He placed the tablet on her desk. The financial dashboard lit up with green indicators. Second quarter financial performance. Revenue, 24% increase. Load factor, 89%. Industry leader. Customer loyalty, 41% increase. Net promoter score, 87, up from 54. "We're profitable again," Marcus said, a smile spreading across his face. "We didn't just break even. We're actually profitable. The flight cancellations cost us $24 million, but we recouped it all, and then some." "How?" Elena asked, even though she knew the answer. "Wingtip modifications," said Marcus. "We saved $3.4 million in fuel costs. But more importantly, after this news went viral, passenger bookings skyrocketed. People want to fly with an airline that fired a racist captain. We're getting corporate contracts from companies that specifically cite our non-discrimination policies as a deciding factor." He opened another screen. "And this is huge. We licensed the wingtip technology to 7 other airlines. Embraer wants to make it standard on all new E195s. That means $180 million in licensing revenue over the next 3 years." Elena smiled. Doing the right thing turned out to be profitable. "Imagine that." "There's more," said Marcus. "Delta, United, and American have all reached out. They want consulting on implementing similar anti-discrimination programs. They're willing to pay top dollar." "Elena, you've created a new line of business. Airlines are lining up to learn from us." Elena's phone rang again. This time it was an email from 60 Minutes producer Sarah Klein. "Elena, the program airs tomorrow night. The initial viewership numbers are very high. This will be one of our highest-rated episodes this year. Get ready for the spotlight." 6 months earlier, Elena had sat down with Leslie Stahl for the 60 Minutes interview. She had told the whole story: the Sky Lounge, Vivian Ashworth, Captain Cole, the champagne spilling, the flight ban, everything. The program's title was "The Hooded Billionaire: How a Woman Got an Airline Banned for Racism." It was about to air to 20 million viewers. "Marcus," Elena said, "how are the Ashworths?" Marcus's face darkened. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a news article from the Boston Globe. Ashworth Investment Partners files for bankruptcy. Former banker Gregory Ashworth faces SCF investigation over fraud allegations. Gregory lost his banking license 4 months ago, Marcus explained. The SCF investigation uncovered numerous ethical violations unrelated to the airline incident, but Vivian's public behavior triggered the probe. The investment firms went bankrupt. They sold their home in Beacon Hill. Vivian was removed from the boards of all the charities she belonged to. He moved on to another article, this time from a community blog. Vivian Ashworth, From Socialite to Pariah. Photos show the former pharmaceutical heiress working in retail in the Boston suburbs. In the photo, Vivian, looking 20 years older, was seen wearing a name tag in a store's cosmetics section. Her platinum hair had faded. Her expensive clothes were gone. She looked tired and defeated. "Working in retail?" Elena asked, unable to hide her surprise. "The foundation fund was tied to Gregory's company," said Marcus. "When the company went bankrupt, he lost everything. No airline will hire him. He's currently on the permanent no-fly list of 15 airlines. He can't even fly on a commercial plane." Elena was silent for a moment. "What about Captain Cole? Marcus Webb?" "Cole flies for a regional airline in South Dakota," Marcus said. "Turboprop planes. He makes $45,000 a year. He also filed for bankruptcy. He lost his retirement benefits when he was laid off. Webb works as a security guard at Logan Airport. Night shift." Elena turned back to the window. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel satisfied. She just accepted the consequences of her actions in a cold, clinical way. "Do you ever feel regret?" Marcus asked quietly. "For what you did to them?" "No," Elena said without hesitation. "They made their choices. Cole chose to threaten a passenger. Webb chose to side with discrimination. Vivian chose to lie and humiliate someone she thought was weak. I didn't destroy them. I just refused to protect them from their own choices." She turned to him. "What I regret is that it took someone with resources like me to ensure accountability. How many passengers before me endured the same treatment but lacked the power to resist? That's what keeps me awake at night." There was a knock at the door. Chief Legal Counsel Jennifer Park entered. "Elena, we just received a notification. The Department of Transportation wants to use Meridian as a case study for airline discrimination reform. They're proposing federal regulations based on our model." "Federal regulations?" Elena raised her eyebrows. "Mandatory bias training, independent defense offices, demographic performance monitoring. They want to make this legal for all U.S. airlines." Elena sat down slowly. "We're changing our policy." "You're changing our policy," Jennifer corrected. "Thanks to you. That evening, Elena attended a recognition ceremony for Meridian Airways employees in the headquarters auditorium. 500 employees filled the hall: pilots, flight attendants, gate agents, mechanics, all wearing the new Meridian uniform with the Respect in Flight badge. Elena stood on the podium and looked out at the faces. 6 months ago, most had resisted her reforms. Now they understood. 6 months ago, Elena began, her voice filling the hall. This company faced a crisis. Not a financial crisis, not a safety crisis, a moral crisis. We had allowed discrimination to become normal. We had accepted prejudice as inevitable, and we had let our passengers down. She paused to make her words more impactful. Some of you didn't want to change. You thought the old ways were fine. You didn't accept training, oversight, accountability. I understand that. Change is hard. She smiled. But look where we are now. Our passenger satisfaction scores are the highest in the industry. Our profitability has increased by 34%. Airlines across the country are asking how we did it, and the federal government wants to make our reforms mandatory. He pointed to the screen behind him showing the FAA's final report. We did this together. Everyone in this room contributed, and I want to specifically recognize some individuals who went above and beyond. She read out their names. Flight attendants who completed advanced bias training, pilots who mentored young crew members, gate agents who intervened to prevent discrimination. Everyone stepped forward to receive a Crystal Award and a $5,000 bonus. After the ceremony, Elena stayed to shake hands and chat with the employees. A young black flight attendant named Jasmine approached her, her eyes teary. "Miss Volkov, I wanted to thank you," Jasmine said. "I've been flying for 3 years, and for the first time, I felt respected. For the first time, I felt like I belonged here. You made that happen. Thank you." Elena hugged her. "You always belonged here, Jasmine. I just made sure everyone knew it." Late that night, Elena returned to her apartment in Miami's Brickell neighborhood. It was a modest 2-bedroom apartment. She could afford a penthouse, but she wasn't interested in luxury. The walls were covered with engineering drawings and photographs from her MIT days. She made tea, sat down on the couch, and opened her laptop. Tomorrow, the 60 Minutes program would air. The story would reach millions of people, and Meridian Airways would become a symbol of what could be done when someone refused to accept the status quo. The phone rang. A message came from an unknown number. "Dr. Volkov, this is Raymond Cole. I know you have no reason to read this, but I wanted to apologize. I'm truly sorry. What I did was wrong. I let my prejudices control me. I hurt you and countless others. I'm working to be better. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know you were right. Thank you for holding me accountable. Mindful Ray." Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then she wrote, "Captain Cole, I appreciate your apology. Accountability is the first step toward growth. I hope you continue on this journey. Mindful Lana." She pressed send, then deleted the conversation. Another message arrived. This time from Marcus Webb. "Miss Volkov, I currently work for the TSA. I see passengers every day and remember what I did to you. I'm ashamed. I let you and everyone like you down. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do better. Marcus Webb." Elena replied, "We all need to do better. Good luck, Marcus." She turned off her phone and looked at the Miami skyline sparkling in the night sky. 6 months ago she had been told she couldn't board her own plane because she was wearing a hoodie. Today she was changing an entire industry. The journey wasn't over yet. There would be more resistance, more struggle, more people who didn't want to change. But Elena Volkov had proven something important. Power without responsibility is tyranny. And tyranny crumbles when challenged with certainty, intelligence, and moral clarity. She opened her laptop and began drafting her next project, a foundation to support minority students studying aerospace engineering. She would name the foundation the Flight of Honor Foundation. The foundation would provide scholarships, mentorship, and internships, because the best way to change an industry wasn't just to punish discrimination. It was about ensuring the next generation had the tools to prevent it. The 60 Minutes segment aired the following night and achieved record ratings. Leslie Stahl's closing words became a viral quote. Elena Volkov didn't just bring down an airline, she also brought down the assumption that power protects prejudice. And in doing so, she reminded us all that honor is not a first-class privilege, but a right for everyone. The program showed images of the new Meridian Airways, a diverse crew, smiling passengers, and the message "Honor in Flight" on every aircraft. A mugshot of Vivian Ashworth taken after her incident with airport officials was shown. Captain Cole's disciplinary record, the 23% satisfaction gap, and systemic failure were also shown. Additionally, Elaine, wearing an MIT hoodie, stood in front of the E-195, explaining the fly-by-wire system she designed. The message was clear. The woman they tried to throw off the plane was the one who built it. Within a week, 3 more airlines announced similar reform programs. Within a month, Congress passed the Airline Passenger Dignity Act based directly on Meridian's model. Within a year, all major U.S. airlines established bias training and independent ombudsman offices. And it all began with a woman refusing to give up her seat. Elena Volkov never flew commercial again. The Citation X aircraft was repaired and returned to service. However, she made it a principle to fly with Meridian Airways once a month, always in economy class, always under a pseudonym, always as an observer, because the work was not yet done, but the system had changed, and it would never be the same again. 10 years later, Elena Volkov sat in a conference room at Harvard Business School, speaking to 500 MBA students about leadership and responsibility. A student raised his hand. "Dr. Volkov, have you ever regretted reacting so aggressively? Grounding the fleet, firing the crew, ruining those people's lives?" Elena was silent for a moment. Then she stood up and walked to the center of the stage. "Let me tell you what I regret," she said. "I regret that I had to buy an airline to earn basic respect. I regret that Captain Cole subjected passengers to discrimination for 30 years before anyone stopped him. I regret that Vivian Ashworth thought she was entitled to someone else's seat because of the color of her skin." He paused. "What I don't regret is refusing to stay silent. I don't regret using my power to hold them accountable, and I don't regret showing the world that honor is not negotiable." She smiled. "Those who lost their jobs and status didn't lose them because of me. They lost them because they chose cruelty over kindness, prejudice over justice, and entitlement over empathy. I just made them face the consequences." The conference hall erupted in applause. After the conference, Elena returned to her office at MIT, where she currently teaches aeronautical engineering. A framed photo hung on the wall, 26-year-old Elena seated in seat 3A of Flight 847, wearing her MIT hoodie, looking at the camera with quiet dignity. Beneath the photo was a plaque. "The strongest thing you can do is refuse to accept that things must always remain as they are. Mon, Dr. Elena Volkov." On her desk, carefully stored in a glass case, was the champagne-stained engineering notebook, the work where it all began. She kept it as a memento, not of what she had lost, but of what she had gained: honor, responsibility, change, and the transformation of an entire industry because a hooded woman refused to budge.